Ledger lines are how you extend notes above and below the staff. Ledger lines always seem to give students some trouble, but really, if you remember two different patterns, you'll be able to get through this. The first pattern to remember is that the staff alternates between lines and spaces. This is a line. The space above it is a space. Then we get to another line, space, line, space, line, space, and now we're at our top line. To follow the pattern, the next note, if I were to add a note above that top line, it would be a space. We are now on the space above the staff. If I want to go up one note higher, it needs to be a line. I can't just draw a note a little higher and have that count. So you add what's called a ledger line, a small line right where I need it. It's essentially a sixth line going above the staff, but we don't draw it all the way across. We only write it when we need it. So there's a line. If I want to add one note higher, I put my line so I can draw the space above that line. And I'll do one more because it's important to show this note is not the next note up. We measure intervals between lines and spaces. This note here is only one line above the staff. This note here is also only one line above the staff. If I want to show that that's the next note up in order, I would have needed to add the first line as well. So again, line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space above the staff, first ledger line, space above the first ledger line, second ledger line. The first pattern to remember is that everything goes line, space, line, space. The same is true going below the staff. One note down, the space below, first line below, second space below, second line below. The next pattern you need to remember is the alphabet. The musical alphabet is A, B, C, D, E, F, G. After you get to G, it repeats. So it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, I ran out of space, it keeps going. Remember the alphabet, remember line, space, and that will help you figure out ledger lines. So, let's look at this first note here. We know that the top line of the treble clef is an F. We know that the alphabet goes in order, and that this note here is the next note up. So what comes after F in the alphabet? It's G. G is the space above the top line of the treble clef. Now we have a ledger line above G. So what comes after G in the musical alphabet? It's A. This is an A. Now some of these ledger lines you'll wind up memorizing, but it's important to realize you don't have to memorize everything. I haven't memorized anything like this. This, if I see it in music, I don't just automatically know what it is. I just count up. I know that the top line is F, so I go up through the alphabet, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's a really high G. I double check. F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I confirm, it is in fact G. The same is true below the staff. The only difference is you need to count backwards through the alphabet. So we know that the bottom line of the treble clef is E, because every good boy deserves fudge. This is the space right below that E. So the letter right before E in the alphabet is D. Now, this note has the one ledger line, so I can count down E, D, C. It's a C. Hopefully the pattern's kicking in by now. I see one below C, so this must be a B. So I think it's great if you can memorize up to 2 ledger lines above and below the treble clef and the bass clef. You can always count, but it'll help you speed through things if you just memorize those. But looking at something like this over here, that's a lot of ledger lines. I would just count backwards. Again, counting backwards can be trickier than counting forwards, but still. E, D, C, B, A, G, F, E. This is a very low E. And that is how ledger lines work. Just like memorizing the note names of the bass clef and treble clef, Working with ledger lines becomes easier the more you practice them. Head over to musictheory.net, set up that note identification exercise to quiz you on the grand staff, and you can set the range to 2 ledger lines below and 2 ledger lines above. Work through that, and that will help you a lot in becoming familiar with ledger lines.